This programme features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is why the Nkuhuma Pride is such a firm favourite.
It's Kinky Tail.
He just looks ready for a fight. This is still her territory. The Avoca boys are here to stay. Ooh. How insane was that?
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Safari Lives, the show where, well, we bring you all of the updates regarding our characters from the past week. It really is an epic way to spend an afternoon, and hopefully we're going to educate you guys up to over the last 7 days. My name is Tristan, and on camera I've got Archie this afternoon. So I must be honest, because the studio is a beautiful place. The second thing is that it is absolutely hammering down with rain and has done so for the last 24 hours. And so being out there at the moment is not going to be that much fun. So I don't envy David at all as to him being out there. I think he's going to have a bit of a rough time of it as it kind of rains. But we're safe and dry in the studio, and we're going to be discussing a very special topic this afternoon. It's probably why you all think, what am I doing with stuff all over my face? And that is what we are going to be delving into this afternoon, is we are going to be delving into the world of a very, very special, very fast cat. And they have these little tier stripes, as I've got as well, so I've decided to be one with them this afternoon, and we're going to talk about the cheetahs of the Masai Mara, particularly the Mara Triangle. And so I'm sitting here basically where the map is, and so where we are, just to give you some of you an idea, a lot of you will already know this, but some of you that haven't sort of been or seen the map of the Mara before will have a good idea of what's going on. Now, this is the Mara River that runs all the way down from the Mara National Park. So this is the national park going all the way that way, and then the triangle is everything, some of the cheetahs that we see here, how we ID them, how we look at them, and then we're going to just discuss a lot of things about these areas. It's kind of delving into it. I'm trading in my rosettes for spots today, and it should be a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Right, before we do all of that though, let's send you quickly across so you guys can catch up with what exactly happened and where all our animals moved during the course of the week. Another week has passed in our characters' lives, but this week would see the return of much-needed rains back at Djuma. Water has rejuvenated the scorched earth, and life once again abounds. The rains coincide with the return of the portion of the Nkuhuma Pride. The Pride first appeared in the west and steadily headed east, before returning to the central parts of Djuma. Masana had a week of mixed fortune, as he had a close shave with the Nkuhumas in the central parts of the reserve. Kalamba was found on the eastern boundary with Torchwood, eagerly awaiting Tundi to fetch her for food. Eventually her patience was rewarded as Tundi returned and led the playful princess back to an impala meal. The Talamati male also made a brief appearance by himself, after being with the Pride a few days earlier. Up north in the Mara, the short rains seemed to have finally arrived too. The week started with the sighting of the Olololo Pride as they lounged about after a meal. The North Clan was in attendance at the den, as the Sausage Tree Pride was also found with a fresh kill down in the southwestern corner of the triangle.
Right, well, that's what we're looking forward to for this afternoon. Good day, how are you? I'm just going to turn this way so that we can look at the hyena den over here. My name is James Hendry. It's lovely to have you with us for this, the 27th episode of Safari Live. Zzz. Please talk to us, of course, using the hashtag Safari Live or the YouTube chat stream. That's how you must talk to us. Good. A highlights package of Safari Live's characters. There is a termite mound in which is a hole. We spent most of last week here playing, or not playing, watching the play behaviour of the three cubs of the Djuma clan with the matriarch, Corky, and of course from that hole emerged the matriarch's son, and we said that we should give him a name. And so you all voted, you fought amongst yourselves, you bantered amongst yourselves, and we had a lot of consternation and thought over the name to be given to the exalted position of the matriarch son. And this was the result.
Last week on SafariLives, you voted on a name for Corky's son. The choices were Plonk, Pinotage and Merlot. Well, after countless thousands of votes, some backroom shenanigans and an exhaustive audit, we have a result. Behold, the son of the matriarch, Plonk.
So there you have it. Plonk it is. Plonk, son of the matriarch. I think it's a wonderful name. I think it's perfect. Certainly was my choice. And we are going to try and see if we can find some hyenas. They are my characters for the afternoon, as is Horsana. I'll try and find him as well. So we'll go from den to den. I'm not sure if they've moved. I don't think they have. The cubs were seen here yesterday. Just not a lot of fresh activity post the rain. So maybe they've moved somewhere else. We'll go and have a look around. And maybe we'll bump into the little chief as well. He is my other character for the afternoon. I believe you're all very happy with the name Plonk. I think it's a superb effort on your part to have chosen such a wonderful name for a little hyena. He looks like a plonk to me, I think. Pinotage and Merlot seem somewhat just a bit grand for him, I feel. The blustery weather continues, and so I think that, well, while we're going to do our level best to find whatever we can out here, I think the conditions are going to make for quite a trying safari. But we're going to try our level best, despite the trying conditions, and perhaps we will triumph. See what I did there? Yeah. We'll go first now towards the den that was just down the road from that one. Let's see if we don't get lucky over there. Let's see. We've had about apparently only 10 millimeters of rain this morning, which I did not think was very much at all. I thought we'd have a bit more than that. But that's all we had. Let's have a quick look at those birds of the migration. Of course, not the great migration, but it is a migration of a far greater distance than those wildebeest manage. In fact, it isn't. Those are lesser striped swallows, actually, and they don't do much migrating as far as I'm aware. In fact, I think that pair lives pretty much on that tree. I'm just going to finally release the brake. Sorry about that. Let me just quickly check that up for you. Swallow. Swallow. No, S-W. Hopeless phone. Swallow. Right, here we go. Lesser striped swallow, common intra-African breeding migrant. So yes, it is a migrant of sorts, but it is an intra-African migrant. It doesn't spend too much time away from here. Present from July to August and March to April. That's very interesting. Oh, well, that is unfortunate. Oh, okay. Suppose we better fix that. My earpiece is also not working very well, I don't think. Okay, we're going to go to Trish, are we? Okay, well, Trishala's making her debut, I think, on SafariLives. Is she? Is this her debut? I think it is. Let's go and say hello.
Hello and good afternoon. I am so excited to be making my debut today. Now, as you can see, it's freaking windy. It is so windy. That's why I've got this big fat puffer on. And you know, I told you earlier, Trish survives best in 35 degrees Celsius weather. And this 23, just not cutting it. Yeah. So the plan for today is to look for the wonderful lazy Nkuhuma lions, and I'm going to do that. Just go further up. I've heard there by Buffelshoek, so that's where I'm going to move on to. And then, well, I didn't hear they were at Buffelshoek. I heard there was some buffalo rather, and I know that where there's buffalo, there may definitely be some lions sneaking around. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So, taking you on this journey with me. debut, hey? Flying solo today with David behind camera. I'm excited. Let's do this. While I move on in this blistery weather, I'm going to send you back to our hostess with the mostess, woo, in the Mara.
Well, I'm not sure about that, Rishala. Hopefully it will be a hostess with the mostest scenario and will deliver a good hosting role. I don't think one can ever be as good as what James Hendry is, but we'll try our very best. Anyway, we can see that we have a cheetah that I have put very kind of precisely in the middle of the triangle. And so basically we're going to focus, like I said, on the triangle cheetah. And this particular cheetah that we've put over here is one that is going to be the center pin of basically everything that we talk about in terms of the triangle at the moment. We have at this stage, we have basically one lineage that we see regularly here in the triangle. So it's Kekenya, who is the mother, and then she had two daughters, Naserian and Naratoy. Now those three females pretty much form the basis of our cheetah population within the triangle in terms of females that are regularly kind of in and out. And I say in and out because they do cross a lot. They go over the river and also down into Tanzania. But Kekenya and Naratoy probably more so than Naserian spend a lot more time in the triangle than many other places. And so basically this is Kekenya over here. She's not an old female, so as far as we know she was born before 2012, so she's at least 6 years, probably a lot older, or probably a little bit older, so 7, 8 would be my guess. And often when we talk about sort of looking at cheetahs and how we kind of identify cheetahs, it's quite confusing for a lot of people. It's not quite like what we do with a leopard. A leopard will often use things like the spot patterns, so we'll use those little spots above the whisker line. With cheetahs, they don't have that, all right? So you have to look at things a little bit differently with cheetahs, and there's a number of ways that you can do it. Left and right side profiles are the best way, though, all right? So you use the entire side of the body, and you'll figure out spot patterns within that you recognize. So with Kekenya, you can see we've got her sort of left side and her right side at the moment. For me, on her right side, the spot patterns that I use mostly are these sort of three markings over here. It almost looks as though there's kind of sort of spots that have joined together in 3 rows. So those always help me. And then she's got a number 9 that I use as well, just behind that. So if like that and you come down, that's the number 9 that I always use. It's not quite a 9, but it kind of gives me that impression, and so that's how I always identify her from her right hand side. Obviously the leg spots can also be used, so you can see she's got 2 spots very, very close together, and then 1 below it, and then the 2 to the right hand side. So those kind of together are very, very unique. And if we look on her left hand side, she's got this little sort of, it almost looks like a little kind of lightning bolt, if you want to call it. So it goes like that. That's a nice way to kind of see her on her legs alone. And then on her body itself, she has another number 9 over here. So there's the 9 that comes round and down towards her armpit. And so those are the 2, that's why I kind of use them, is because I can find a 9 on both sides with her, and that really, really helps. The other thing is you can use the tail spots as well. The tails of cheetahs will be slightly different. If you have a look over here, you see that she'll have bars, white and black bars that kind of go along, and then you'll get a break and you'll start to get spots that will start to happen. So these spot patterns will be able to kind of run through, and they'll be always different on every single cheetah. She has a nice little kind of spot pattern that can help you because she's got these 2 little dots between 2 bars, and so that's kind of quite a nice way to be able to tell her apart. Now, I was saying that she's kind of the kingpin between all of the cheetahs here, and that she basically was the female that kind of started the other females within the triangle that we see. So she gave birth to Naserian and Naratoy, along with 3 others. So there was 5 in total, actually, in that litter. I said yesterday 4, because we saw Kekenya, yes. Was it yesterday? Yes, yesterday. I said 4, but it actually was 5. 1 died very early on, and she then raised 4 to adulthood. But Naserian and Naratoy are the ones that have stayed here. The other 2 have disappeared and don't really know where they are. But Naserian and Naratoy stayed. Now, they both have kind of done their own thing, and so the one that we see the most is Naratoy. She spent a lot of time here during the middle part of this year. She had 2 boys at that point that Scotty Dyson affectionately named Johan and Jacobus, which are ridiculous names. Obviously that wasn't an official name at all, and it wasn't what was used. But Naratoy was kind of born in 2014 with Naserian, and then she had a litter of cubs this year. Now, unfortunately for her, it seems as though all 3 of those boys died, and she's now on her own. She was seen the other day completely alone, no other cheetah with her, and that can only mean that those boys didn't make it, unfortunately. We know that only one was left prior to that last sighting, and it seems that he's gone too. And it's quite sad because he was quite a big cheetah by then, and you would have thought that he would have been able to kind of do all right and make it. And it just goes to show how difficult it is for cheetah in even the Masai Mara and Serengeti systems where it's so open. You would think that it would be a lot easier for them, but it's still incredibly hard because of the number of threats, which we'll get into a bit later. But in terms of kind of IDing Naratoi, I always struggle with her a little bit. There's no spots that really jump out to me, except for on her right front leg, which is a few spots that, if you have a look here, you've got a spot there and a spot there, and then a tiny little spot in the middle of it, and then a little kind of ring. And so that always reminds me of a Halloween smiley face, like a little skeleton smiley face that you would get in a carved pumpkin. So that's kind of how I always think of her when I kind of see those spot patterns. That's roughly what I will kind of use on her front right. I struggle with her, like I say, a little bit. And then she's got a really nice kind of perfect little circle on her right hip over here, which really kind of works quite well. On her left side are a few little kind of markings that sign, should I say, would probably be the best. It's a little arrow that comes round. So this would probably be one of the better ones to use. It's quite defined. You can see it's a nice angular sort of pattern that you could use. Now, the problem with these kind of things is when they're still sort of subject like it is now, and the picture is dead still, it's very, very easy to notice these things. When they're moving a little bit, it's quite tricky. But this is why researchers will use side profiles like this, and you can see her spots already look completely different to that of Kekenya. So even though that's her mom, she doesn't have the number 9 on her sort of area over here. You can see she's just got a lot of squashed up spots all together. There's not that clear kind of bend over there, and so that's how you can kind of tell. And then with her sort of her tail, if you have a look here, she too has that sort of broken part between the bars, but hers are not spots. There's quite a big bar there, and then a little spot right on the top that changes her kind of tail. Now, we'll go on to Naseri and her sister. Naseri, unfortunately, is quite a tricky one because not that many people have actually seen too much of her, and so we haven't got that much footage of her, and I had to kind of borrow some of the Mara Meru Cheetah Project images to be able to kind of do this. Now, Chris, sorry, I missed the name. If you can just repeat the name for me. But I know Naserian does sometimes, Naratoi has battled with cubs. Ladybird, yes. Naratoi has battled with cubs. So has Kekenya and so has Naserian. All three of them have really struggled. And like I said, that's probably due to the fact that here within the triangle, particularly over the last sort of years, that there's been incredibly heavy rains, which has led to a hugely increase in the length of grass, which makes cheetah sort of survival rates quite tricky, because what's going to happen is they're going to go in there, they're not going to find as much food, so their prime food source here is things like Thompson's gazelles, scrub hares, and when the grass is very, very long, the Tommies are not going to go into that long grass. They're going to try and move until they can find shorter grass. So they're going to go across the river, they're going to go into Tanzania, whatever it may be, and they're going to move off. All right, so it's going to be very difficult if they have their cubs in a certain spot for them to be able to find food. And that was very evident with Kekenya and Naratoi when I was last here, is that we would follow them sometimes for 4 or 5 hours walking just to try and find a food item. So that already becomes a big sort of problem. The problem also that kind of extends from that is that they then spend so much more time away from the den, and therefore those cubs are at a lot more risk from other predators. And here in the triangle there is, and within the whole Mara system, to be honest, there is a huge number of lions and hyenas, and a cheetah obviously just has no ability to protect itself from either one, really. And so a number of the cubs then get killed via that. So they've got a lot to worry about and a lot to try and figure out. The other thing with here is that where a lot of the cheetah are using as den sites, which is either the escarpment or the Inselbergs, which are these little kind of mountainous areas within the plain system, those areas are occupied quite heavily by leopard. And so that's where the leopards will move around quite a lot of the time, and so they also come across the cubs. And with Kekenya, when she had her den, a leopard was actually seen walking straight towards her den as well as lions. So it's a bit of a tricky one. But we'll quickly just sort of do Naserian. Like I say, she does also come into this area. She too had a litter of cubs that was born actually not too far from where we are right now on the escarpment, but they also all died, unfortunately. And like I say, she is the sister to Naratoi. Unfortunately, we didn't have a nice right-hand side kind of comparison, so I just kind of tried to get one of her right hip. that she's got a really nice kind of stripe of or row of dots that runs along, and then another one on top over here. So you kind of get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that run along, and then on the top side there's 5 of them that go over there, and those two kind of make 2 bars that can really be used. The other thing that I kind of like to use on her right hip is that there's almost a radioactive sign. So you've got the central very, very, very round spot, and then 2 kind of elongated spots that come down, and another one over there, and that kind of area makes a little sort of radioactive sign for me. On her left side, she's got this very, very big, prominent, dark spot right in the center of her stomach, and so that's a nice one just to use for that. And essentially, if you wanted to extend it out, she's actually got 2 of them right there, and then another 2 that are over there. So that helps you with that. So that's how we kind of identify those 3. We'll get into some of the other cheetah that we see into the triangle, but before we do that, let's send you actually down to the floor of the triangle with David, who's battling the rain rather manfully.
Very good, very good. Well done, Tristan. Thank you for explaining all about the cheetahs. And you can tell my car looks very different from the usual because we are being hammered here by rainfall, and I'm sure you've been wondering where I have been. And as usual, my name is David, and with me today is Manu. Manu, how are you? How does the rain go? Well, we have been hammered for the last 3 hours, and that's not letting us or making us stay in the camp like Tristan. We thought we'll still come out, leave Tristan there talking about the cheetahs, and we come here and show you the rain and all the mist or all the clouds, and if you're lucky, maybe show you 1 or 2 things. And Manu, do you want me to move forward for the ostrich or stay right where I am? All right, at least you have seen an ostrich, which is to me something very special. Let me know when to stop, Manu. And ostriches sometimes are difficult to spot, especially like now when it's raining. So we're going to show you a male ostrich that I've spotted from a distance. And if he doesn't move, he'll stay in the same position, and you'll enjoy seeing one of the largest birds that doesn't fly. Back up. Okay. That's good. All right. At least we have something to show you, something different from the normal. And this is the Maasai ostrich. And Manu has a very tight angle for any spotting because he's using just a small window to spot the game because it's still raining and we've got pretty expensive and delicate equipment in the car. And remember, anytime you talk to us, you give us lots of happiness. Any questions or comments, hashtag SafariLive as usual, or you can keep following us on the YouTube chat stream. Now the white looks pretty clear on this particular ostrich. As we all know, the sexual dimorphism on ostrich is very defined, unlike certain birds, the females being brownish greyish in color and the males being black and white. Now I'm saying it's more defined this time around because of the rains that are going on, and all the drops of rain falling on this ostrich are just cleaning it. Not very far from where we are, we have a particular pride of lions that we call Olololo, and when it comes to hunting, they will try and hunt any animal. The Olololos are the largest pride in the Mara Triangle. The 2 oldest lionesses have skillfully raised their cubs to strong and almost independent sub-adults now. The pride was awake to enjoy the spectacular sunrise from the eastern horizon. With the migration gone, these sub-adults must take greater risks to have a meal. Dangerous prey like hippos are probably too much, but this didn't stop the young lions testing the huge animal as the day broke. Welcome back, and in the Mara Triangle we got so many prides of lions, and the one you just saw that we call the Olololo pride, it is the largest. When together they are always about 16. Currently the migration is almost gone back to Tanzania. Not that they live there, but they'll always move between Tanzania and the Mara Triangle. Tanzania, I'm talking about the Serengeti National Park. But once they do that, These lions here, like the Olololo pride, they are left now trying to venture dangerous animals. I'm talking about hippos, buffaloes, and not once I've seen the Olololos bringing down a hippo. It's not very easy, but because of the sheer numbers, they're able to bring down a hippo. An ostrich is not exceptional. We have seen lions, when they don't have much of a choice out there in the bush, they'll even go for ostriches. Very fast birds. The first thing they will do while in trouble is speed. Sometimes very good question. When you see the legs and the necks of ostriches being red, are they ready to mate? And sorry about the car that just passed on the road there. It's very true, and you're very right. Once they go very pink, that's when we say they're in the breeding plumage. And what this one would be doing here, it would be looking for a mate. And when they are mating, they always have like a mating dance, some kind of courtship they do before they start mating. You're absolutely correct. The necks, the legs, and in general the better part of the body is always pink and sometimes deep red when they're just about to mate. You're very right. Females apparently do not change their colors. They remain grayish, brownish in color in general, and even on their legs and the necks, but it's only the males that will show the breeding plumage. Very fast bird, as I was saying earlier, more or less the same speed as a cheetah, sometimes 60, 70 kilometers per hour, and that's another car there of the game rangers. Well, the ostrich is disappearing from the tight window of Manu, and because of that reason we need to move and look for some other animals in the rain. But in the meantime, we'll take you back down to South Africa for someone who is looking for the lions.
Yes, I am. I'm still missioning about looking for these lions. In fact, I thought that if we find these buffalo, the lions wouldn't be far behind. But been looking for tracks, haven't been seeing anything, and haven't found the buffalo either. But what I have found are some white-backed vultures. Now, this gives me a little bit of hope, because that might tell me, especially since they're perched up in this dead tree, that might tell me that maybe there's something around. See, they're up in this dead tree, so they could easily get down and not be hindered by any leaves around them, if there is a carcass around. But we'll just have to check that out. In the meantime, let's have an update and look at what Amber Eyes got up to, or rather, what she had to endure in the last couple days. Amber Eyes received some TLC from the other lionesses in the Niconico pride. The lioness had 2 wounds on her back left leg, possibly a result of an altercation with another lion. The Talamati male joined the 2 females, perhaps hoping in vain for some TLC himself. Yeah. I feel bad for her. Those wounds look pretty bad. But there's nothing like some TLC, and we all know that. So, unfortunately, the vultures also decided to leave me. A windy day is not a good day. You even saw him, he's all puffed up, it's kind of cold. He's trying to get some warmth in there. I still can't. Not absolutely gone. But we're gonna keep missioning on. And while we do that, Brent seems to have found something that I want.
Indeed, indeed. We have caught up with the young Talamati male. But of course, there's a little bit of drama because he's hanging about where we last saw little Tlalamba. So she's probably moved away from this area and is keeping herself scarce, or if she is close by, keeping herself very well hidden, because of course I'm looking for Thandi and Tlalamba for this afternoon's Safari Lives. But this young male lion was when we found him, was about 50 meters from where Tlalamba was yesterday evening. However, it doesn't look like he's caught her or run into her. I think she has successfully evaded him. And of course he's out all on his own at the moment. the evokers starting to put pressure on his presence with the Nkohoma Pride. Very, very exciting. Now, for those of you who might be new, remember this is 100% live, coming to you from South Africa and Kenya. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have my good friend Craig on camera, and this is Safari Lives, where we follow our characters' lives as they move through this African wonderland that we call home. Zephyr says he's looking good. He indeed is looking relatively good, but extremely hungry. Look at that. He's probably looking for something easy to catch. There were tracks of a buffalo herd around here, but that might be a bit of a risk for him because it might bring the evokers in. Looks like he might walk straight towards us. Lily is wondering, does he have an injury by his ear? It looks like he might. Lily, he's been in a bit of a scrap. He's got a new scratch across his nose as well. But I can't see any major injury. I just see a few little scratches. Hey, big boy. He is going to be an absolutely massive male when he reaches his prime, and hopefully for his sake he does reach his prime, because the life of a young male lion on his own is a very perilous one, fraught with danger. I see what you were talking about. There's a little scratch behind his nose. Where are you off to, big boy? Okay, well, he stopped. And he's on the move again. Okay, let's turn around and keep up with him.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have found a very special sighting now, and we got a black rhino. Will you believe that? Sorry about the gremlins from South Africa there. Sometimes, we have been going through some lightning and thunderstorm the last few days, and also, as you can see here, we are not any better. We got some rains, but that does not stop us showing you this very beautiful animal, the black rhino. Man, do you want me to move forward or stay there? Okay, just hold on, folks. I'm going to move forward for about 2 meters. Let me know when to stop. Manu has a very tight window that we are working on for all our game today. And I'm very happy all of you are happy to see the rhino, because it's pretty special to see it. Okay, just hold on. Okay, Manu. Holding on, holding on. It has rained so much. How does that look, Manu? Anything at the back? Keep coming. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's watch it from there, because they're always very sensitive animals, and it's just bracing itself from the rain. And look at him carefully, or at her carefully. Her ears, if you look, they are notched, and this helps the game rangers to identify them and to very closely follow them. Rhinos have suffered a lot from poaching for very many years, and on the IUCN listing, they are on the red alert, but so far so good. We are doing all what we can to make sure that this species will keep growing in numbers. And this is the black rhino, and it will not be any different if you see the white rhino. The colors will be basically the same, and the difference is always on the shape of the mouth. If you look carefully on her mouth, it seems like it's like a triangle in shape. Sinak male rhinos show very big dominancy, and what they do, you'll get them digging on the ground. If you look at this one carefully, Sinak, my guess is this is a male, and you're asking how do they show dominance. If you look at him carefully, I'll call it a him, he got some mud on the horn, and that is how they show dominancy, by digging the mud. Number two, there are times you'll see them going to certain trees and just horning the trees and trying just to remove the bark, and you can see very clear disturbance on tree trunks because of the rhino, and that is more so in the males. That's one way of showing dominancy. Number three, sometimes once they poo or when they drop their dung, you'll see them digging or trying to spread the dung out, or when they just wee. That's a few ways how Sinak, the male rhinos, will show some dominance. Once in a while also, they'll fight and go for each other. See how patient he is, and I'm more convinced than before it is a male. And because of the rain, you can hear so many car behind us just trying to zoom and trying to struggle like me in the Mara with the black cotton soil. And luckily, the same ostrich we saw before has come behind this rhino. This is for Manu, I'm sure it's very good to have two shots in one. In the meantime, this rhino is not getting very happy with the car that just zooming behind us. But in the meantime, we'll take you to Tristan to talk more about the cheetahs.
Well, how delightful is that rhino sighting? Very well done, David. I had a brief view of it in the FC just now, and it looked like a really nice sighting of a black rhino, so very, very cool. As you can see, our cheetah has found itself a new throne on a skull. It's almost like the gangster of cheetahs that's found itself like a little kind of cheetah skull throne. But anyway, so when you guys last saw us, we were talking about female cheetahs, and we were talking about kind of where they are within the triangle. And so basically, within this sort of triangle area, I thought I'd just quickly tell you, Raul, give you a rough idea of where each one of the three gets seen. So down in this sort of southern section, this is the border that runs like this along towards the river. So this whole kind of section around the river area, all the way along, all the way to this escarpment is where we was seeing Naratoi quite a bit when she had the two boys in sort of May, June last year. From there, she then went south into Tanzania and then came back again and was seen around. And so she gets kind of seen anywhere from the sort of southern section. And the other day, apparently, she went as far as even up towards Serena. So she kind of came back towards the river, and she was even been seen crossing the river of late, which is something we'll discuss a little bit later with her, but interesting enough. Now, Kekenya, most of what we've seen from her has been all this kind of central sort of area. Where that little marker is now is where I saw her yesterday, so that's where she's been hanging around. This whole section in here has been burnt recently, and so this is where the shortest grass is, and so this is where she's kind of been hanging around. So that's where she's been. And then when Naserian was around and when she had the cubs, she was spending a lot of time along the escarpment. And it was quite interesting because I was talking to some of the rangers that are stationed at a post a little bit further south of where I'm pointing right now. And they were saying that she would stash her cubs there, and then they would see her walk past the post, because this is where the ranger post is. They would see her walk past this post all the way down to hunt in a big open sort of clearing over here on the Tanzanian boundary, and then she would walk all the way back to where those cubs were. Now, that distance from where she would walk, where she would leave the cubs in a rocky sort of outcrop, was probably easily, she was doing 30 kilometers a day, maybe even more, just to go and hunt and find food. So it gives you an idea of how these cheetah have to move sometimes when it's not the migration season. But when it is migration, what's interesting with them is it seems that they actually move around a lot more away from the wildebeest herds. The threat of wildebeest and zebras stampeding due to hyenas or lions is so big if they've got small cubs that they tend to kind of shift around, and wherever the herds go, they kind of go opposite to that, unless, of course, we're talking about the 5 males. Now, talking about males, obviously these 3 females, if they're going to live around this area, they need to have males as well, because they're going to want to reproduce. And while they will work long distances, there are 1 or 2 males that kind of hang around. And probably the 2 that are most seen around the triangle are right down here towards the Tanzanian boundary. They're called the triangle boys, or border boys is probably the sort of name that a lot of people will use. And it's 2 older males. There were 3 initially. 1 has disappeared, and it's now just the 2 of them. And they kind of patrol up and down, and most of the sightings that you see of them is literally walking along the border road, and they kind of go up and down, and then they hunt a little bit on either side of it and spend more time in Tanzania than they do in the triangle itself. And I'm pretty sure those are the 2 boys that are actually the ones that try and father a lot of the cubs when it comes to these 3 females. And so I've got pictures of both of the boys just so that we can basically ID them if we ever see them on drive. Steve actually saw them fairly recently. I think it was in October that he saw them. And so this is the 1 male, and basically what you've got is, if you have a look on him in terms of sort of spot patterns and working out, he's got a very kind of solid set of spots that come down. So I'm just going to mark them there, and it makes like a little F pattern. So if you see there, that's the little F that he's got on that side over there. That's a kind of nice little spot pattern to use in the front. He's then got sort of these 2 that make almost like a little pair of spectacles. So if we just sort of draw, oh, I've not done this very well, my mouse skills need a bit of work. So there's a little pair of spectacles, little Batman goggles that he's got over there. And then on the sort of this side, he's got a little boomerang on his sort of right leg. So that's a good way to kind of see it. And then if you look on the inside of the leg, he's got a nice sort of reverse C, or you can call it a U if you want to. Either way, it's up to you. So that's the kind of 1 male that you see, and those will be identifying features. I unfortunately don't have his left side, but we'll go on to the next one, which is, hold on, I'm going to just quickly get out of this and try and sort of go on to the next male, which should be, sorry, try to load them all up so it would be easier for me, but anyway, there we go. He's kind of over there. Now, this particular male, he's obviously got a kind of nice little few little markings as well. I tried to use a very similar picture so that you guys can get an idea of the sort of differences between them. Now, if you have a look here, he's got a V that runs in this section over here. So there's the V over there, so that will help you with that. He's also got a kind of different marking to what we saw on the other male on the inside of his legs. He's got a sort of stripe that runs down and then joins up there, so it's kind of just this little squiggly line of stripes that comes down that I always kind of think about. I've seen these boys a few times and they're quite nice to kind of watch. And then on his sort of back legs, if you're looking around the back leg area, if you're just going to sort of get the back leg sections, he's got a very sort of sharp stripe that runs over here like that, and then this big gap between these guys. So there's kind of this massive gap between 2 stripes that runs there that I've found to be quite useful. That works quite nicely for me. I mean, obviously other people will probably see different things within these guys, but that's a nice one that I kind of like to use. And then on the inside of his leg, he's got a really nice sort of row of spots that comes here, and then it just tapers down slightly, so you get this kind of L, reverse L, if you're looking at him from this side. So those are the kind of spots that I'll use. You can also sometimes use on their faces. It's a little trickier, the faces, obviously, because they move quite quickly, and sort of the way that they go and their heads are quite small, spots can often be quite difficult to see. Now, Jason, you say his tail is gorgeous. Yes, he's got quite a nice tail. He doesn't have nearly as many black sort of rings going down. He's got a few small ones at the end here, and then this one, and then he's got a lot of spots that kind of go up and move along. So that's the boys mostly that we see. There is another young male that's been seen recently, but I believe he comes from Tanzania. That's what the cheetah researchers are telling us, and isn't really kind of a dominant individual within this section. And so it's pretty much these 2 that we see mostly. Anyway, we'll carry on talking about cheetah. We're going to get into a few little clips a little bit later and show a few bit of behavior and those kind of things. But while we do that, let's send you across to Brent Leo Smith down in South Africa.
Well, there's a go-away bird alarming in the river system that's attracted the attention of the Talamati male. I wonder if little Kalamba is hiding there. We're probably going to leave him soon to continue our search for Tandi and Kalamba. And I think the first place I'm going to start looking is around where those go-away birds are alarm calling. Hopefully little Kalamba is keeping her head down. You can see he's listening and checking carefully where those alarm calls were coming from. He hasn't made a move to go closer yet. Becky is wondering, what is the age difference between the Talamati boy and the Nkuhuma boy? I'd say probably a close on a year. Oof. Cold wind. Sure. Suddenly the temperature has dropped quite suddenly. Might be nearly time for a jacket this early on. Now, as I said, we came into this area hoping to find Kalamba or Tandi, but we found our young boy who's been forced to be a nomad for now. There is always a chance he will rejoin with the Nkuhuma pride that he's been spending his time with. But for now, he's sitting pretty, just listening. Now, as I said, so this just across over from us here is where Tandi had that impala kill with Kalamba a few days ago, and then 500 meters behind us is where she had the second kill. And over the last little while, this area is where Kalamba has been hanging out while waiting for Mom. So there's a strong possibility she is in the area, but hopefully, as I said, she spotted this lion and has made herself a bit scarce. But I've been keeping an eye on all the big termite mounds and hoping that if we do see her, that she is aware that there is a dangerous lion in the area. Okay, now, while we wait a little bit longer with this male lion, let's send you to Trishala, who's looking for the rest of the Nkuhuma pride.
Yes, I am still looking for my Nkuhumas. Done a bit of a loop. I'm so jealous that Brent has that handsome young Talamati male. Don't you think he's such a handsome male? I do. I think very much so. Well, he is on his own, and I mean, I feel a little sorry for him, but let's have a look at the first time we found him on his own. The Talamati male was spotted on his own and had been reported to be running away from a larger Avoca male. He will not be able to return to the Nkuhuma pride where he had made a home. And with this understanding, he let out a small call, had a sniff around the area, and appeared to accept his fate. He continued on his way alone. How was that, hey? Poor guy. But that's just the way it goes. That's how lions, they need to graduate and move on, and he's going to find a coalition, and he's going to be a successful young man, I'm sure. Or young lion, rather. I am still missioning about, drive through endless puddles, looking for these buffalo, no tracks. I will find.
Sorry about that. We do have a few issues with our bits and pieces at the moment due to the inclement weather. Now, I failed to find Hosana, and I've yet to return to the hyena den, but on our way we have found a giraffe. That's what you're looking at there. And he was perched so beautifully with this quite stunning background. Look at that. You can see all the clouds over the mountains there, and I actually just saw a bolt of lightning strike the foothills of the Drakensberg range there. Isn't that pretty? Absolutely nothing to do with Safari Lives whatsoever, but it is still magnificent nevertheless. We've had a lot of rain down there, or out there. That's basically looking straight towards Hoedspruit, where Sebastian, who is on camera today, lives. But you say it's still quite dry out there, hey?
Yes.
Yeah, still very dry out there, apparently. Never to date, you say it's so lovely, it's so green. Yes, it is. It really is very special this time of year. And all the birds start to sing, and what was a little bit of chamber music becomes a full symphony once again, and they all start breeding, and everything goes green, and really you do get a feeling of utter abundance and life. And we have another giraffe sneaking into picture now, which is very nice. A bull tripped over a stick. Bad luck. Yes, we saw you. We did see you. There's his friend, bull number 2. Look like youngsters going for their Monday afternoon tea. Oh, there we go. Now, of course, at this point, in order to make this relevant to Safari Lives, what I should be saying is something along the lines of, well, you know, of course, Osana would probably not hunt one of these, which he wouldn't. He's not big enough to hunt one of these. There are records of male leopards killing young giraffe, but once they get to around about this side, they'd be pretty much safe from Osana. That's not to say they wouldn't spook at him, but they would definitely be afraid of a big clan of hyenas. And the Juma clan is not a massive clan at the moment, and they tend to do a lot of individual foraging. So again, this magnificent giraffe bull, just coming into his prime, don't have much to worry about from our Safari Lives characters for the week, except of course for the lions, which would devour a giraffe. They don't seem to be giraffe specialists really, the lions here. Philip, the correct biological term is actually herd. A herd of giraffe. Tower of giraffe and journey of giraffe are just kind of fun words that we use, like dazzle of zebra or parliament of owls, which of course doesn't exist because owls are almost universally solitary or in couples. Murder of crows, that sort of thing. They're not biological terms, so if you read any kind of textbook on those animals, you won't find those collective nouns. So, the upshot of that, Philip, is that you can call them what you like. You can call them a tower of giraffe or a journey of giraffe. I will not mind at all. And nor may anyone else. So I have decreed. Now, the rain has not fallen from these grey clouds yet this afternoon, but I believe it is doing so in the Masai Mara, where David is driving around looking, hopefully, for the sausage tree pride.
Well, the rains have not stopped, and I have also not stopped. I am still on the move, and I am on the move looking for cats. Possibly, if I could be lucky, I'm talking about lions. The only possible cats I would expect to see around this area I am at are the lions. Now, at the moment, the migration, as I was talking before, is gone back to Serengeti National Park in Tanzania, because the wildebeest will need to go and prepare to have the babies come the month of February next year. So once that happens, the lions in the Mara Triangle are left trying every animal they can be able to hunt, and let's see what could have happened a few days ago. The sausage tree price numbers are increasing, so buffalo kills are becoming regular on their menu. Having their pride meals around also helps to target such large and dangerous prey. The cubs have now all been taking part in feeding at carcasses as they mature. The older cubs seemed more at ease feeding than the youngest member, who seem to have confused mealtime with playtime, much to Kinkytail's irritation. We continue to wait with great anticipation for the birth of Kinkytail's cubs. The other day I was counting the number of lion prides in the Mara Triangle, and I think I came up with about 10 or 11 prides. Now, the sausage tree pride, it's very special. It's very special in the sense that the females on their own more often than not are always able to bring down big and dangerous prey like buffaloes. And you see, or you saw how well they did on that one, as much as this time they were lucky maybe the male came to give them a hand. But the sausage tree, many times the 5 females, because the sausage tree pride has 5 females, comfortably they are able to bring down a buffalo on their own without a muscle of a male. Now in that particular pride we got 3 cubs. I think 2 are 3 months old and 1 is 2 months old. The one had a brother who we do not know what happened, and at any age of 6-8 weeks lion cubs are always able to eat meat, and you have seen them just slowly going ahead and eating. Now Kinkytail is the oldest of those females there, and she's very experienced, and we all think she is pregnant, and it's just a matter of days before we get maybe 2 more additions on that pride of the sausage. So we're just waiting, and maybe we'll be able to bring you the good news. It could be next year or at the beginning of the year, and I think this will be wonderful news on the new year. Joy, very good, great comment. The cubs are so cute when feeding on a buffalo, and I'm trying to imagine if those cubs at that very tender age could have an idea what type or how big that buffalo is, or what his parents, because that cub or the 3 cubs are males, the boys we know they're males, what would be going on in the mind, trying to imagine what their parents go through to bring down such a huge and dangerous prey. Hopefully one day, Joy, as you say, they'll grow bigger, they'll mature, and their parents maybe will train them how to do it on their own. It doesn't take long, 2.5 years, they should be out starting hunting, and being males, they'll be very quickly after 2.5 years shown the door by those 2 males there, and they start living on their own. And maybe a time will come to keep hunting or hunt buffaloes on their own. Well, this area is always good, and the pride that lives around this area, we call the marsh pride. Hopefully you're going to see it, and if you're lucky, that will be good. But in the meantime, let's go back to Tristan and hear more about cheetahs.
Well, hopefully you will find them. There's often lions around the marsh, and like David says, it's the perfect kind of conditions for hunting buffalo in that area. Lots of buffalo that hang around in that section. Right, now, just now we talked about male cheetahs, and I said that they were the border boys or triangle boys, and it's actually wrong. So I must apologize to all of you. I told you a fib. And thank you very much for James and Judith, who pointed that out, that they actually come from the Lamech Conservancy. Now, Lamech is very, very far to the north. It's a long way away, and they've kind of moved in and sort of come in. So that's interestingly enough, and that the border boys actually is down to 1. There's no longer 2 of them, and it's got a blind right eye, which is, or right eye, I don't know if it's right or left. Anyway, we digress. So at least there's 2 male cheetahs that are on the boundary, and like I say, they are around, and they seem to be younger individuals, which is good news, and hopefully they'll spend more time. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to look at some clips. You'll think that this is a black screen and that there's actually nothing going on here, but there is actually some clips that we're going to show you. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to talk about various cheetah behavior, much like we often do when it comes to Safari Lives. And basically what you've got here is you've got the 5 cheetah brothers. Now, if you have a look, you've got the 5 boys that are, well, not brothers, I shouldn't call them brothers because they come from 3 different litters, but they are a coalition. Let's call them the 5 members of a coalition. And basically what we've got is you can see that they've just hunted and taken down a wildebeest, and what's coming in now is a hyena. Now, their general sort of reaction to what's going on at the moment is not really too worried. They're just trying to eat as fast as possible, and this is something that you'll see from cheetah regularly, is that they are animals that will eat as much as they can, as quick as they can, and for the prime reason, because of the amount of other predators that we see in this particular area. And so we've got a lot of hyena and a lot of lions, which means that the cheetah themselves will eat very, very fast, try to get it as much in as possible before they inevitably get chased off in certain sections of this particular kind of thing. But what's interesting about this sighting is what kind of plays out as it goes. So I'm just going to kind of carry it on quickly, is that you'll see essentially the hyena slowly but surely kind of makes its approach. The cheetahs themselves at this stage are oblivious. This hyena knows exactly what it's doing. It knows that when it comes along to cheetahs, it can try and kind of go after them. But now what's interesting with them is you can see straight away, once the hyena gets close enough, is that the cheetahs they try and defend this carcass as much as possible. And when cheetahs are in a defensive posture, it's very easy to notice. You can see straight away what happens is the head drops and they raise their sort of hackles on their shoulders and their sort of back end area, and their back sort of goes up a little bit. And what they'll do from there is that they'll try and run at this hyena, and we'll play it forward now, is that they'll run and they'll kind of stamp their front paws, trying to intimidate and trying to show teeth and really trying to kind of impress this hyena with size. The thing about hyenas, though, is that they are very resilient animals, as we know, and so this hyena ends up kind of just going around, and you can see all of them start to try and defend, and they try and provide a united force. Every single one of them kind of runs in, and then they eventually realize, unfortunately, that this hyena is not going to be fought with. All right, so cheetah, if this was something like a lion or a leopard, they would have gone after that hyena and really kind of asserted themselves. But with these five like this, you can see the hyena eventually gets in, it tucks its bum so that its vital organs, or its sort of testes, or its reproductive organs is probably the better word for it, gets looked after, and then it's able to then kind of go in and start feeding. And you can see already the posture of these guys has changed. They almost know straight away that unfortunately this carcass is going to be lost. D'Artagnan, who's on the sort of front right, he's still trying to kind of feed and trying to hang on, but what you'll see is as we roll the clip forward is that this hyena kind of just doesn't give up, and the cheetah then turn and walk away. Now, like I say, if you had 5 leopards or 5 lions, there's not a chance that hyenas would end up kind of taking them. But what's also interesting with these guys, as they kind of drift away, is what you can see is that that one, and to a degree that one have all got some sort of size in their bellies. So they all got a little bit of a food in it, and I reckon that it was much easier for them to leave and to go after another wildebeest in these kind of areas, particularly when migration is around, than it is to fight with a hyena over that remaining little bit of wildebeest. They at least all got something out of it, but it was quite incredible to kind of watch their sort of interaction with hyenas. And like I say, if I roll it back a little bit, I'm going to take it back quite a long way, and I just wanted to show you this little kind of section once again, is that you can see how far that hyena starts, and it just does a big circle around them and keeps coming, and eventually it knows persistence is going to pay off when it comes to cheetah. And so this is the problem that cheetahs have within the system where there's a lot of other predators, is that they lose out so much from these guys. They just can't kind of keep kills as effectively as they could. And I mean, you know, you've got 5 members here that are big males. Now, what are the chances for a female with little cubs? She's got really no chance when it comes to hyenas. But what was interesting with this is that the hyenas approached in a very different way than what they would approach a female. If there was a little female by herself feeding, or if she had cubs there, that hyena would have run in a lot more aggressively. But you can see even the hyena knows that when there's 5 big males, it's got to be a little bit more careful about how it goes about its things. And what was also interesting about this is the specific hyena that came in is obviously one that is quite a low-ranking individual, because I only noticed it much later, but you'll see how it kind of runs around. You see how they run with their paws, try and smack it, but you can see on this individual's ears over here, it's been chewed up quite a bit, and so that's an indication that this is quite a low-ranking individual that's probably had a fight with a couple of other hyenas. But the cheetahs try and stand their ground. I was showing earlier that they'll try and use teeth, they'll try and kind of bear them and try and make themselves as big as possible, and you can actually see the fur that's kind of been raised slightly between the shoulder blades to try and just make themselves a little bit bigger and to try and kind of keep this sort of momentum and keep this at bay. But the hyenas are just so used to being beaten that they'll kind of move around, and then they'll come in there, and eventually you can see they just give up, and that's it. And it's because a cheetah's just too scared of what the consequences of a bite from hyenas is just really going to cause a lot of damage. Now, Vicky, you say this has really shocked you, 5 cheetahs versus 1 hyena. It happens quite regularly. Now, these boys, there's 2 reasons probably for their sort of way that they are around this. One is that, yes, they could fight with that hyena, but they're going to inevitably incur probably some sort of injury. A hyena bite to a cheetah's leg or paw or something like that is very, very serious. And the second thing is, being 5 cheetah like this, their success rate in terms of catching food is so high that these two, I mean, these guys don't struggle for food at all. They constantly are taking things like wildebeest and topi and all kinds of animals. And so for them, the risk of fighting is so high that they'd rather just abandon it and walk off and go and find another meal. But interesting behavior nonetheless. Good. We'll keep kind of going through various other clips, and while we kind of get the next one up and ready, let's send you back across to Brent and the Talamati Mail.
Isn't he a lovely, lazy little boy? Not, oh, there we go, big yawn. Hasn't moved around much. I think we're going to leave him be shortly while he lies here, and we're going to go have a proper look for our beautiful little princess. There was rumours of a small herd of buffalo around here that he was following this morning after drive. But I think by himself, unless he can get a little calf away, it's going to be quite the challenge for him to catch a baby out of a herd. They will defend themselves. Not to say it's not possible. I've seen it done before by single male lions and single young male lions even. But it is definitely more of a challenge. Okay, we're going to go search for our beloved Thandi and Tlalamba now and leave this young male lion to snooze away. In the meanwhile, reverse. In the meantime, let's go to James to see what he's up to.
Well, I'm still looking frantically for whatever I can find relating to our characters, and I am afraid I haven't managed to do very well. But here we've arrived at Buffels Hook Dam. I've parked beautifully, so Sebastian has the pole right squarely in the middle of his picture. How's that? A bit better? We have our gooses, and I think the time has come for me to now head back towards the hyena den in the hopes that Corky and Pretty will play ball, realizing that, of course, it is Monday afternoon and they should be at the den for Safari Lives. They're the two worst parents in the world. They should actually be characters, really, because we have watched them produce and lose countless clutches of eggs. The latest one I see is gone. They had another clutch of about, I think it was 7. Osana chased a few of them. He didn't catch any, well, not that we saw anyway. And slowly, one by one, the entire clutch has whittled away to nothing. Once again. Meanwhile, at Buffels Hook Dam, at least at Chitra Dam, the Egyptian geese seem to be breeding at a quite terrific rate. Lovely. Pretty, this little chap. It looks maybe perhaps been on the drink for a while. Seems to have fallen into a hole. Perhaps that's the problem. Are you a heavy drinker? Is that why you are not managing to raise a clutch of eggies to fruition? Ah. Project Alpha makes a good point. I feel humbled now. Thank you, Project Alpha. You say they are more successful parents than I am. Well, Project Alpha, you of course don't know that for sure, but you are in fact correct. Quite cheeky of you to assume that I am childless. But yes, you are correct. at least they've got as far as producing some offspring. I am, of course, being facetious. Sure that they do their very best. I'm not allowed to say that things out here aren't good at being parents. All right, hopefully the character to whom we are going to go now is one day soon going to be a father, unlike me.
Disturbing tracks a week ago indicated that Osana had been warring with a lioness. A bit of rosetted fur suggested he may have lost his tail tip. We were extremely excited, therefore, to see the little chief a few days ago. Mercifully, his only concern seemed to be staying cool and drinking mud on the beastly hot afternoon. The small wound on his neck perhaps the only evidence of his troubles with the lion.
So there he is, the little fellow, and if he carries on being as wily as that and escaping from his confrontations with the bigger cats, I'm sure he one day will be a father, hopefully in this area. It would be so nice to be able to watch him develop into a territorial male. But that's the question, of course, on everyone's lips all the time, is he going to stay, is he going to go, how much longer will we have with him, will his father tolerate him, for how long? And of course, all of these questions we answer with wild conjecture because we don't really know, and that's what makes it such fun. Because we do, every time we see him, kind of breathe a little sigh of relief that he's still with us and still around. Our very favourite clown leopard, Osana. Right, well, I think we should press on and let us go and see if we can find our other character at the den. I'm going to say I'm quite hopeful. In the meantime, back over to David Gathambagithu, who had what he's got now, being a little cruel this morning to a serpent.
I think James Henry was talking about the Egyptian geese, and let's change that topic of the geese, which could not be very interesting, like the hornbills that we got here, two on top of a tortured tree. Well, these hornbills in general are always on the ground, but once in a while they go on top of trees like they are now. There are two of them, and a few minutes earlier we had seen another one, and not sure. This one is trying to shelter, or they're trying to shelter themselves from the rain because they've gone pretty high. Definitely, this is not a tree they would have a nest, definitely not. And maybe they're just grooming themselves after having a lot of rain. It has been raining heavily, as I said, for the last 3-4 hours, and have just subsided now, and that's why we look much clearer. And Manu is not struggling to use a small window to show you these wonderful birds. Roshni, thank you very much. It's wonderful to see ground hornbill because, Roshni, I think you know, at the moment the ground hornbills are very vulnerable, and looking at the IUCN listing, they are on a red alert, and you'd only see, I would say, the ground hornbills at the moment in conservation areas, be it a game reserve or a national park or a conservancy, where that you'd see them outside the conservation areas, like in the villages, near the cities, not anymore. I would say they're quite vulnerable, quite endangered. And I think the biggest concern is loss of habitat. There's been a lot of logging going on in many African countries, and these birds are suffering nesting home. They tend to choose very old trees and very big, solid trees that are hollow, and that's where they make their nests and lay their eggs and raise their young ones. Very special birds, I would say. Of all the largest, of all the hornbills we've got in Africa, these are the largest in size. But I'm saying they're very special because they do what we call corporate breeding. And corporate breeding will have a pair, be it a male and a female, that will need 2 more or 3 other youngsters to help them raise their young ones. in general, after 6 months a year, most birds will be independent, but the southern ground hornbills sometimes will take 2 to 3 years before they become independent. That translates to ground hornbills like trying to multiply or keeping the procreation going every 3 years. So you would imagine taking such a long time. I think it's one of the birds that I think takes a long time to have its chicks or its young ones want to fledge and to be independent. So with the loss of the trees where they can nest, it's becoming a bit tricky to see their numbers grow. That one definitely is a male because you can see the water there is all bright red. A female just at the throat would have a bit of purple or bluish at the throat, and that tells the males from the females. Well, I think Tristan still won't talk about cats.
Well, yes, David, there's not a day goes by where I don't really like talking about the cats that we get to see, all the various species. And you can see I've lined up a whole bunch of skulls here. Many of you would have seen a lot of these skulls before, but it's in kind of since we've been talking about parasitizing of these cheetah and the threats that they face, that I'd just line up their sort of #1 threats that they've got within the system that they have at the moment. So here you can see this is a cheetah skull on the far right, very, very, very small. You can see it's quite rounded. The teeth structure, the dental structure is very small in comparison to some of the other animals we'll look at. And you can even see the dorsal crest here, which is the area which will supply power to this jaw structure, is very, 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 very kind of small. So starting from kind of the smallest of the skulls that we have here, this would be leopard, would be this far right one. And obviously with the leopard, they are quite dangerous to cheetah, but here in the Mara, the interactions between leopard and cheetah are not nearly as much as the other two that are kind of sitting next to it. So they are a threat, and you can see already how much bigger and sort of bulkier that skull is than what a cheetah is. And the cheetah really has kind of sacrificed this bulkiness all because it's trying to be fast and quick, and so it's a much smaller skull that it's got. The one that we just had a look at now that it kind of lost out to kills, the 5 boys, was the hyenas. You can see again they go much, much larger. They've got a huge amount of space here where muscles will attach, and so much more powerful kind of jaw structure. Also a hugely impressive mouth. When it opens, they can do a lot of damage, and that's exactly why I was saying to you that, you know, cheetah will just try and rather avoid fighting with something like hyena. Obviously the biggest probably threat in terms of size and strength, and something that a cheetah just really is never going to be able to compete with, is something like a lion. And I mean, you can see how that just gets dwarfed by a lion skull. This is absolutely massive in comparison to a cheetah, and so you can see why cheetahs just really can't fight with them at all. And it's interesting because we're going to have a look at a clip shortly that's going to do with lions and cheetah, and I'm going to show you something about that, but you can get an idea of kind of roughly the size difference and why they don't tangle with them too much. The other threat potentially, which is one that's very seldom talked about, is these guys. All right, so these cheetah cross the rivers here quite regularly. It's quite interesting actually to watch them do it. They go across the Mara River, the Talek River, and there's crocodiles in those rivers, and so crocodiles also are a threat to any big cat that crosses a river, as well as obviously the river itself. So we know with Malaika that she unfortunately was lost in a raging torrent, they think. Obviously she was seen crossing it, and whether or not that was actually what took her, no one knows. But crocodiles are also essentially going to be a major, major threat. And if you kind of compare that skull to this, you can see why a cheetah really is going to struggle if it comes across one of these Mara River giants. It's going to have a really tough time of it. And I watched a crazy clip the other day of a cheetah crossing, and I think it actually was Naratoy, crossing through a whole bunch of hippos, and you know, luckily there was no crocodiles there. But like I was saying, we have the lions, and they are a threat to cheetahs, and so I'm going to show you quickly a short little kind of clip of the difference between what we saw from the 5 musketeers when they came to hyenas versus what happens with lions. So you'll see it's very much the same situation, just a lot greener with more flowers in the background. The boys are eating as quickly as they can, so they're scoffing down as much. There comes the lioness now. You can see she's seen what's going on, but now look at the difference between these guys. When we watched them earlier with the hyena, they turned, they faced, they presented themselves, they were aggressive. Backs were up, heads down, teeth showing. Now you can see a very different cheetah. They got their heads kind of on a swivel, and they're trying to get out of there as fast as possible. If we roll it on, and actually let me just go back slightly for you, sorry, I just want to show you something. There in the background, you can see the hyena is sitting. Now, they are not even worried about that hyena. In the previous clip that we showed you, they were focused on that hyena, but now that there's a big predator like a lion around, their reaction is completely different. They're running straight past it, and all they're trying to do is get out of there as quick as possible. You can see they're trying to put distance, and all of them are fleeing as fast as they can. And the lioness walks in, and you can see her size relative to that wildebeest carcass, and when the 5 cheetah were lying around it, how much bigger she really is. And it's no wonder that they run from her. There's no ways that even 5 cheetah are going to ever tangle with the lioness of that size. I mean, you can just see she is massive in comparison. And what I'll do is that if you have a look at that there, and maybe somebody who's very clever can take a screenshot with all of this, if you have a look at that versus that, and it gives you an idea of just how much bigger and bulkier she is when she stands over that carcass. Sorry, that's them kind of running away again, and she sort of moves in, but you can see she is a much larger individual, and when she stands there, she's quite imposing, isn't she? And she will basically then take over, she'll feed on it, and she'll get all the kind of food off of that. And you'll find even the hyenas won't really bother her if it's just a single hyena. If obviously we get lots of them together, then you'll start to see interactions between lions and hyenas. But it's very interesting how the cheetah behavior is completely different, given that, you know, hyenas, they'll prepare to kind of try their luck to push them away, but with lions, there's no ways. As soon as a lion comes, they're out of there as quick as possible. Good. We'll keep going with cheetahs. I hope that you are all enjoying this while we kind of get our next sort of thing prepped and ready. Thank you to Brent, who's now looking for little Kalamba.
I am indeed. I am searching for our darling little princess. So we've done a big loop around that area where we left the lion. It's just behind us, but low down there. And maybe she's moved up towards Second Rock. Maybe Tundi has taken her to another kill last night. We don't know. So we're searching. But we have been incredibly lucky to spend a lot of time with Tundi and Kalamba around carcasses this week. So let's go have a look at the first time we found them. Tundi sat panting in the tree, belly full, feeling the extreme heat, snarling at Kalamba whenever she dared to glance up. Tundi soon had enough of the tree and moved on to find some shade. Not before giving Kalamba a few more Tundi smiles. Kalamba took this opportunity to climb up the tree and have a bite to eat. I've been trying to check on every single termite mound in case Kalamba is on top. But it was wonderful to spend some quality time with Tundi and Kalamba again this week. And I think this week coming, we'll also be able to spend a lot of time with them again. It's going to be more difficult to find them because the tracking is going to be more difficult after the rain. But we did need the rain, and it's incredible how much more green the bush is in a few short days since after rain. Now, so far we haven't seen any spots on drive yet, but believe it or not, before I went out on game drive in our camp, I saw leopard rosettes. And can you believe that? Before I even left camp. Unfortunately, these rosettes were not on a leopard. They were on Trishala's pants. So I think you're going to have to definitely ask her to show you. I could not believe it myself. I'm quite a fan of leopard. I've been put in my let's go colors leopard tights.
Thank you so much, Brent. But yes, I do have leopard print pants on. But so what? I'm in the bush, you know? You've got to be bush chic. In fact, maybe I can show them to you. I think they're cool. I think they're cool. Anyway, so the tallest lion I know, Leo Smith, has informed me that there may be some Avoca males around. So, speaking of them, let's have a look how they interact, or the one of them interacted with the Nkuhuma female not too long ago. One of the Avoca males is in a current courtship with the ridge-nosed lioness from the Nkuhuma pride. With an electric atmosphere, the lioness waited for the male to show some interest in her. When the male seemed to show little resistance, she was up with a big yawn. She tried her best to seduce the male, tail up high and rubbing up against him. This, however, seemed only to cause friction between the pair. Nothing seemed to ignite this male's enthusiasm. She tried again and again to spark his interest and to woo him with her feline ways. But it just wouldn't do, and the need to nap was far too magnetic. I think that was quite cool. It's nothing like a lion's mating. Well, eventually, if they ever get that far. I'm yet to see that. I'd love to see that. I am very eager to find some lion's mating and a kill. Haven't seen a kill. Anyway, close now. Look for them. Let's go back to Tristan.
Well, Trishana, those are very, very, very fancy pants I hear about. There's leopard print pants. I'll have to get me some of those, although I don't think tights would really suit me. Pretty sure Brent would have a lot to say about that. But anyway, so we were chatting earlier about obviously kills and predators and those various other things, and it's obviously an interesting kind of topic, but obviously cheetah have to get a kill. So they can't just find dead animals and feed off them all the time. They've got to be able to hunt for themselves. And so we thought we'd have a little look, and we'd take a look at the most masterful of the hunters that we've seen and documented here in the Mara, and probably that most people have seen, in just that there are so many of them that it's so much easier for them. But basically we've got the 5 musketeers, and so here you've got a Coke's hartebeest that's busy walking, and you can see that the boys are all sort of spread out over this little section. What's really interesting with these guys is that the one over here, you can see is resting, is not even facing that Coke's hartebeest, but the one to the left has spotted it and is down and is really trying to kind of flatten itself as much as possible. So they're trying to make themselves small. The others, well, some of the others are not really paying attention. And so if we roll it on, you'll see basically what happens is, even though all 5 are there, the ones kind of only take their cue. This one here has taken its cue by watching that one. It's then swiveled its head and has noticed them. And so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all kind of sitting there watching, and they'll wait and they'll wait, and eventually then the Coke's hartebeest gets into place and they start to go. Now, it's incredible to watch cheetah go. Look at the speed at which these guys move. Now, there's a lot of interesting things that we can look at when they run the way that they do. And so I'll just let it roll forward slightly because I wanted to show you kind of how this all works. Now, you see what's happened here is these guys can't maintain their speed for very long periods of time at all. And so this one has tried. It's gotten onto the back of the Cokes. It's kind of wrestled for a little bit. The Cokes have shaken it off and gone. Now, if it was a single male, that would be it. Over, hunt finished, done, nothing else going to happen. But what you can see with these 5 is that the next one comes along and he starts to chase and then goes on and gets onto the back and tries to then anchor it. It too kind of slips a little bit. You see this one is fading away a little bit. It anchors it, and then the next one comes in. And so they utilize each other, much like what we would see from hyenas and even wild dogs. They all start to come in, and together, collectively now, the 5 of them basically wrestle a much larger animal than what people think cheetah can take. They wrestle it to the ground, and the combined body weight does the job. And what you can actually see is quite interesting. So we're going to go right back now to sort of start with everything. And so we'll start with the chase. If you watch these guys when they run, their ability to cover distance is incredible. And the reason why is that they've got quite a few adaptations that are different to a lot of the other animals. If we start just with the claw section of these guys, they don't have the retracting claws like we see from, or protracting claws is actually the right terminology, from lions and leopard. Their claws stay out all the time, and they have quite longish claws, and those claws are there particularly just to basically provide traction. So they're allowing these guys to be able to dig into mud and to be able to turn very fast. And it's much like an athlete or a sprinter with their athletic spikes. And so they'll have that. Then what you've got is you've got an incredible ability to take a very long stride. And so there's 4 limbs. And the muscular structure around that is very well developed for it. It's perfectly designed. Their muscles can withstand quite a lot of strain and tension, and they're able to then get up into these incredible speeds by using those legs to get out straight, come down, and then pull themselves. And the back legs and spine actually bend so that the back legs can come in front of the front legs and then come back. And so if you watch it here, so it goes from here, and we'll try and kind of just do a stop-start as it happens, but it's so fast, it's quite tricky. So we go, and then there. So you see the back legs are now starting to come in front, and that allows these guys to get a huge stride. So for every stride that this hartebeest is taking, this guy is making almost a meter on it, and that's because they're covering almost 7 meters in a single stride, and that's all because of that spine being so flexible that it's allowing this to all come forward much further. If you look at the back legs of the hartebeest, it'll come to sort of just in behind the sort of front legs of it, whereas the cheetah, these back legs will come past it, they will land there, and then it will be able to stretch out. So if we roll it forward, sorry, I will try to go back a little bit again. So there, and then let's see if we can pause it at the next frame, where the back legs, so that's where the back legs have landed. So she's gone from there in one stride to there, whereas the hartebeest has rotated twice, basically, in the same time. Sorry, should I say he? And the hartebeest has rotated twice in the same time, and that's allowed this animal to kind of get closer. As we roll it down, I would also like you to watch the tail of this cheetah. As it goes, look at how that tail is constantly moving and trying to just balance this cheetah as much as possible. Even when it makes contact, the tail itself is acting almost rudder-like a little bit. They have a much more flattened tail than what you see from lion and leopard. A leopard's got quite a straight tail, the lion's got the little bobble on the end, but theirs has almost kind of got this flattened sort of, it almost reminds me a little bit of an eel's tail. And that will basically kind of rudder it and be able to kind of focus it. Now, we're not finished with this particular clip. We'll get back into it just now, but there's something very exciting, and that is James Henry. Well, not James Henry, but he has a cat that is very exciting that we all adore.
Here we have Hosanna, everybody. We managed to find him. If you can believe it, our luck changed. And there is his potential supper, a Steinbock, waiting behind that. Ooh, 2 Steinbocks. A lady and a man Steinbock. And Hosanna watching them, thinking to himself, are they distracted enough by love to not see my approach? Now, the distance between him and the Steinbock is about, I'm going to say 20 meters or so, which is about 70 feet. But there's not a lot of cover between him and them, which means if he explodes from where he is now, excuse me, he's going to have very little chance. But he's watching with interest in case they come this way. Very exciting stuff. Let's just see what he does. I'm not convinced that he's being particularly serious here, simply because there isn't enough cover. So the Steinbock is looking this way suspiciously, not I think at him, but probably at us. You see, every time it turns its head, he decides to go. All right, well, let's try an unscheduled broadcast quickly. Welcome to those of you who've just joined us. You've come at an optimum time. We've got a young male leopard, Hosanna, aged 3 years old, on the hunt for a Steinbock. We're sitting in the Western Kruger Park, and he's now, the leopard I mean, got himself wedged rather awkwardly on that stick. If there was one part of my body I wouldn't want stuck on a stick, it would be the part that Hosanna has stuck on the stick. Anyway, ask us any questions you'd like to. We'd love to hear from you. There's about 60 feet between Hosanna and that Steenbok, who has no idea that he's there, but is obviously quite suspicious. You can see every time he turns his back, Hosanna thinks he can move. And thankfully, he's paused. He's got his uncomfortable bits off the rough bark of the stick. Now he's managed to get himself into some very nice cover. Now I'm not going to start the car, so if our view doesn't look great, it's because I don't want the Steenbok to look this way. The Steenbok is coming closer. Steenbok, you are in a mighty load of trouble right now. The distance is now closed to about 10 meters. Maybe a bit more, 12 meters perhaps. Ooh, this is quite phenomenal. I've never seen this cat kill an antelope. We've watched him since the day he was born. I can barely breathe, this is so exciting. And now the Steenbok is unwittingly putting cover between himself and our young male leopard. You can just see his spots there. The wind is blowing, and so the sound is going to be very difficult for the Steenbok to hear. And every time the Steenbok turns his head, Hosanna makes a small approach. Now, you will hear people say that prey can smell their predators. And I can tell you right now, I'm not in that school of thought. The wind is blowing directly from the leopard onto the Steenbok. And, well, maybe I'm wrong. It looks like he certainly picked something up and then ran away. Okay, I take it back. I'm going to swallow my pride and say maybe they can smell their predators. I don't know. I don't know if he saw him or not. There wasn't a huge amount of cover between the two, but unfortunately that hunt is now over. Well, that was very exciting. I thought we were going to have a proper attack there from Hosanna the male leopard. Either the eyes or the nose of that Steenbok managed to save it for at least another hour or so. Anyway, thank you for joining us. For those of you who have just joined us, if you'd like to watch the rest of the safari, you can go to YouTube, type in SafariLive, and you will find the rest of our drive. We've got Brent looking for other leopards, we've got Trishala out looking for lions, and we've got David up in the Masai Mara, and Tristan talking about cheetahs up there as well. Alrighty, so that was a bit of a mess on my part, maybe. I don't know if he did smell him or if perhaps he looked this way and saw him. Anyway, we'll try and figure it out. David Gathambagithu remains in weather far superior to the weather that we have here, and so he's going to warm you up with a picture of the sun.
Well, that was very close for Hosanna to almost get a Steenbok and get dinner for himself. I respect Hosanna, and maybe chances he might give it a shot much later. Well, a bit quiet here because of all the rains that have been going on, and we thought, why don't we enjoy the beautiful sunset as the western horizon is showing us at the moment. And as it gets dark, it's time now for the day players to be getting out of the stage and maybe hearing some of the predators like hyenas coming in stage at the moment. The migration may be gone, but times are not lean for the North Clan. They have adapted quickly. With members numbering over 70, the clan has to target a larger prey to feed all. We are not sure whether the clan hunted this buffalo or scavenged it, but it was a good haul. When feasting, it's easy to observe interactions and to learn about the different rankings within the clan. The high-ranking individuals dug in first, while the ones in the lower ranks watched and waited to be invited to the dinner table. Well, we have so many predators here in Africa, and for me, I think I respect hyenas very much. Not 100% sure that they brought that buffalo down, but they have the capacity to do that. We got three main clans around the Mara Triangle. We have the one that you just saw that's called the North Clan. We have another clan that's called the Happy Zebra Clan, and we have another clan that's called the Olololo Clan. Now, the North Clan to me are the strongest, they're fierce, and they would face any prey out here in the Mara Triangle. So I'm not surprised they give a shot to that buffalo, and as I said, not 100%, they brought it down, but they got the mechanism to do something like that. Well done, the North Clan, and they are under a leader of a female that we call the Wafos at the moment. And we have been hearing there's a possibility that the Wafos might be overthrown by one of her granddaughters, called Soup. Well, let's see how things will play out the next few weeks, but in the meantime, we'll take you back to the sunset, and from the sunset, we'll take you back to Tristan.
Indeed. Well, luckily you've got a sunset. We didn't get much at all. But as you can see, when you left us earlier, we were discussing all things, well, hunting related. And basically what you can see is that we kind of paused it in a certain spot so that we can carry on with the discussion. And, you know, obviously Hosana interrupted with his own hunt, and you can see how different it was with him hunting as opposed to cheetah. But basically I paused it in a spot just prior to what we had left you with, and you can see that this cheetah at the moment, how we saw earlier, I was talking about how the spine is very flexible and how the back legs can come between the front legs as it runs. But what you see is the sort of opposite effect now, is how that spine is almost bending the opposite way. As this cheetah now runs, it has to try and latch onto this hartebeest, which is a much bigger animal than a lot of cheetah hunt, and so it's got to kind of bend almost on itself to get its paws up enough to latch onto those rump areas. What you'll often see with cheetah when they hunt smaller prey animals, and why these guys are so interesting to watch, is because normal cheetah would have tried to sort of ankle tap this animal and roll it, and then they don't actually have to struggle with it to bring it down. But if we roll this forward, you'll see he tries to grab one, the coax kicks him off eventually, and he kind of can't hold on. He doesn't have the power of a lion or a leopard, but the other one comes through and he eventually will get a grip. And what's amazing with that is that once he gets a grip on it, so you can see the wildebeest don't care in the background, they're oblivious. Once he gets a grip, you'll see where he actually latches on. So he's trying to latch on at the back, stay away from the horns. The next one arrives, and immediately what they do is they try and kind of get underneath and onto the shoulders of this animal, pull it down, and once they've got it down, then you'll find one will get onto the throat area, and from there, it then becomes a game where one's there on the throats, the rest have pulled down, and they start feeding immediately. So they really try and go about it quite quickly. Really kind of interesting to sort of watch as they do these kind of things. And it's interesting to see how it takes all 5 of them to bring down a massive animal like this. If we compare this to the females that hunt, which I've got a clip of as well, they will target much, much, much smaller animals. So I've just got to get this bigger for you guys. Sorry, hold on 2 seconds. It will play now. So we'll get it right shortly. So if you have a look with this, you can see they're going to be targeting something a lot smaller in the form of impalas. So as she comes, she tries to chase after these impalas, and unfortunately for her, the difference is that she had to deal with a whole bunch of different terrain. Now, the rocks that are all in this section are going to make life for a cheetah very, very difficult. So the boys chose a much better area. They had an open grassland where they can run in, they can really stretch their legs, whereas she chose a rocky section which will be quite difficult for her feet to get into nice positions, and that's probably what slowed her up. The other thing about this is that she doesn't have the luxury of having another cheetah come through, and so what you can see is that when the chase first starts, there we go. The distance between her and the impala is very, very close. It's not a very big distance at all. She starts to tire a little bit. The distance then increases massively. The impala also much fleeter foot in terms of being in a rocky section, smaller hooves that can get in between the rocks, whereas she's got those bigger paws that struggle a little bit. And so the increase in distance and the hunt is already over from there. That impala bolts and she doesn't get anything. And she's got nobody else to back her up to try and hunt that. Now, if we go on to the next clip, which is basically, I think the last one that I've got for you guys today, is this particular one. Now, give me 2 seconds when I just stop this and get it full screen for you. But here you've got a different situation. You've got 3 cheetahs that are here, and once again this is going to be an interesting kind of topic, because not only is she using others, but also she's going to teach the little ones how to hunt in this situation. So this is Malika and cubs. Obviously she was a very famous cheetah. Now watch, she goes and she has that same sort of start up, and then she gets into full speed, and you can see she chases this little steenbok rather quickly. Now she gives up there, but the boys are right there and they get involved, and you can see if we roll it back now, the difference in the technique with these guys as opposed to what we saw from the boys earlier when they had a much bigger prey animal. So you can see right there is going to kind of get close to this little steenbok. There's those back legs that we were talking about, tail working in overtime to try and kind of get it. And as there, you can see paws out, and it's basically clipping the back legs of the steenbok, which is going to send it into a tumble, and that allows them to get on top of it very, very quickly. What we saw from the boys is more strength and power and numbers anchoring, whereas this is a different way. And so this mother has chased this basically back to her boys. Her boys have helped there, the steenbok rolls, and the boys are onto it. Now she joins in, but she doesn't kill this little steenbok. You see, the steenbok is still alive. Now I know it's for sensitive viewers, so I do apologize for this. If you are sensitive, probably good to look away. But she doesn't kill this little one, and she is now teaching these guys how to kind of go about killing it. And the process takes a bit of time. The boys, once they've tackled it, leave this little thing and they sort of nudge it, and they're not really quite sure what they're actually doing. You can see the poor steenbok is out on its feet and it gets played around with, and eventually one of the ones, you can see there's mom in the back, the boys have got this thicker fur on their necks. One of them eventually gets the chokehold and learns that's how they kill it, and will then be able to kill. And you can see this one is going to start feeding straight away. What's interesting with this is, I don't know if it goes too much further, but there you can see that Malika, even though she's standing over the carcass now, she's going to be watching out. So very different to what we saw from the 5 boys. The 5 boys, all 5 in, feeding very, very quickly, getting as much as they can, whereas she knows that the commotion that's been caused by this whole process, and probably the bleating of this little one as these guys learned how to kill it, is probably in all likelihood going to attract the attention of maybe some predators. So she stands and she watches and looks and tries to kind of see what's going on, as opposed to just sort of feeding, and eventually the boys kind of tuck in and she just keeps her watch out, which is absolutely kind of incredible. There you go, see, she's gone to the side and the 2 boys there catching their breath. Amazing sighting. Anyway, that was the hunting, and I'm talking about hunting, it sounds like Hosanna is back on the hunt again, so let's quickly send you back that way.
He seems to be back on the hunt. I think there are some impala quite a long way away from here. But if there are babies there, he's going to be very interested indeed. I just saw a flash of red through the bushes. They're quite far, though. Much further than those Steinbocken were. Anyway, we'll give him a chance. See if he follows through this time. Himself a nice little vantage. Now the way he's standing at the moment, he is interested. The way he's standing is quite interesting, I think, because that's exactly how I'd be standing if I was trying to keep cover and kind of blend, he'll try and blend in with the profile of the mand. Okay, we're going to go around the back here. I don't want to get in his way. Just go back onto the road. There he is, I can see him. Well, I can see the impala too. I'll just go around this bush. Yet again, he's managed to find himself a bachelor herd. No babies. Yeah, he was coming through here. There he is. It's just over my finger. Shannon, yes, I think as far as leopards go, I think Hosana is generally a successful hunter. We watch him fail a lot, but that's just because we watch him a lot. Leopards, by default, fail a lot when they hunt. They probably have a success rate of under 30%. And so, while certainly, you know, it looks like he fails a lot, he is a surviving leopard. He's certainly had a very fat belly for a long time now. So, yes, I think he is successful. Is he more successful than any other leopard? I don't know. I don't think so. Again, with these cats, it's often very much a situation where the better we know them, the more we kind of ascribe stereotypical characteristics to them. We talk about, this is my favorite one, big lions. Lions are always big when you see them. Leopards are always beautiful. And we bang on about them being great hunters or great parents, or we just can't, we pay them a lot of compliments without necessarily knowing whether or not they compare better than their peers, if you know what I want, and the other way around. We might say they're bad hunters or bad parents without necessarily understanding precisely how they compare with their peers. So I don't know if he's a better than average hunter. He's certainly perfectly successful enough at it because he's managed to survive a long time on his own, almost 2 years now, and he's very seldom looked very thin. So I think he's a very successful leopard. Like I say, difficult to tell if he'd be more successful than any other male of his age. I suppose his closest peer would be Tamba, who's a little bit younger than him, also independent, and son of Tingana, we think, and Tandi. And he's headed off down to the south of the reserve. And I don't know if he's better or worse. Jim, I am totally with you on that. You say you think a successful hunter is a hunter that doesn't starve to death. I think that's a very, very good answer. Precisely correct. I would definitely be an unsuccessful hunter because I would starve to death if I was left out here to try and catch something. He's not the most patient fellow I've ever seen in my life, but I think that comes probably with the folly of youth, if you like. The other reason we see them fail quite a lot is that normally we watch them in the day. We don't often watch them hunting at night. It's because, A, we affect their hunts at night because, you know, it's quite difficult to see them, so we have to turn lights on every so often, and, you know, we just can't be as obviously, well, as inconspicuous as we are now. I'm not trying to pretend we're invisible where we sit now, but obviously we can see much further. We can see where the prey are. So we don't watch them as much at night, and I think they probably are, I'm going to guess here, but I'm going to say probably 50 to 75% more effective at night than they are during the day. Doesn't mean they don't try during the day, and doesn't mean they aren't successful during the day. You can just see a little bit of spots there. The impala probably wandered down into the drainage line. Oh, this is nice. Let's head across to Trishala. I think she's got quite a nice surprise for you.
Yes, I do. I have an excellent surprise. I am so glad that our story has come full circle and now we finally get to see our couple. Now, I'm not sure exactly if this is the ridge-nosed female from the clip we showed earlier, but I am... In fact, let's have a good look. She did seem to... So what I'm looking for with this is dark ridges coming from her eyes down her face. And if it is, then her feline ways did woo him eventually, because just as we drove in, we saw them mating, which is really, really cool because I've wanted to see it forever. That we're looking at the moment. I'm amazed. I'm in such awe of them. Look at that massive mane. I love it. And as Davy said earlier, he is not taking his eyes off of her. You are mine. And we need to mate very, very, very many times. Now, mating is really short. And actually they'll mate about 3,000 times before they'll actually be a cub. Isn't that astonishing? And this serves two purposes. It's not just to fertilize the female, but also to bring her into estrus so that it's possible to have a cub. They really are lazy lions, though. The couple have only moved maybe 5 to 10 meters from where they were originally. While I sit with my lazy cats, and hopefully they'll start mating again, and I'd love to show you guys that. Let's go to a slightly more spotted variety that's a bit more energetic.
Right, hello everybody. There we are. We have Hosanna. He's tired now, you can see that. Just having a little trouble with my radio. Let me see if I can quickly fix it. He's now moving still around to see if he can maybe get a better angle on those impalas. But I think they've headed off down into this little river where he has certainly had some success before. Now he seems to be sharpening his weapons. Very good. We can probably move a bit forward. There we go. Weapon sharpening has... No, it continues. Let's just stay and watch from here. That's really nice. Quite vicious weapons he has. Alrighty, let's move on before we have to stare at the back of a Toyota, which nobody wants to do, really. How remarkable that we managed to find Hosanna and the mating pair. Oh, quickly, let's go to Charlotte.
Guys. Just listen to that. You could actually hear him. I am so excited. I just can't hide it. Look at her, she's done. Oh, that was amazing, she says. It's quite an intense affair, the whole mating business with lions. Of course, he's got a barbed penis, which I can only imagine must be absolutely painful. So when he extracts himself, the female will often let out a growl, a snarl. Because obviously it's a bit painful for her. Look at how he's looking at us. Earlier he gave us a little wink. Minamu would like to know if they mate during the nighttime as well. Well, typically they they will mate as much as they can. Like I said earlier, they'll mate about 3,000 times before they produce one cub. So that means that they constantly be mating. In fact, maybe we could say if they're sleeping for 20 hours, the rest of the time they're probably hunting or mating. So there's no reason why they wouldn't be mating in the night as well. Thank you for that, Minamu. I'm just so excited. Now, guys, speechless actually. I said to you earlier that I wanted to see mating lions, and there they are. Amazing. Well, if you'd like to catch their story and more, remember that Safari Lives, you can catch us the same time next week, so we can talk about a bit more about our characters. But for now, thank you so much for your questions and comments, and see you on the drive tomorrow. Bye!